Okay, game 5 here, and this one looks completely and totally wild, mostly because Procession is on the board, and there's lots of things to walk up the chain from Chapel to Scheme to Farming Village to City into Goons. And even more crazy, there's Rogue to get things back out of the trash. Pathfinding exists and is always useful. Whether or not there's time for pathfinding, we will see, because I have no idea. I have no gauge whatsoever for games with procession on it, and this board is laid out for procession. It's like tailor made for procession. Procession is going to be the absolute star in this game. Ball is there to gain more things, but I don't think you want to buy ball in this game. Mostly because if you're buying things, you'll probably have either a merchant guild or goons in play, and if you buy the ball, you won't get the benefits from those things. So how do you open? I think you open with the Chapel and the Marauder. Marauder could sling some junk into your opponent's deck. It could also add the spoils, which will, spike you up to 5, 6, maybe 8 if you need to. Going into the game, I was kind of well set, or really looking forward to sticking pathfinding down on the cities. I don't know if that's good, bad, or reasonable, or what, but that was one thing that I wanted to do during this game, aside from process 100 million things. So we both open with the Marauder on the Chapel. 4 here for me. I go for a Scheme. I could have gone for Procession, but honestly I didn't consider it for just the 2 actions in my deck. I would much rather have the Scheme to either stick the Chapel back on top of the deck or the Marauder. However, my opponent goes for something different, which is not the Marauder, the Procession right away. First forehand is going to be the Procession. I had quite a good opening here. The Chapel connected with 2 estates. His Marauder junked me after I shuffled, so that's about as good as I could ask for things to go. First spot of bad things happening here is that the Marauder and the Chapel collide. I eventually decide on the Marauder. I have no idea if that's right or not. It seems like it's wrong now, and I go for an Oasis over a Scheme. Excuse me, the Oasis is a bit of money. Again, I was trying to keep $8 in mind to try to spike up to that pathfinding price point. However, it's a lot harder than I thought it would be in this game anyway, because I keep spending these spoils. So my opponent picks up another Chapel here. I believe they used Procession on their Chapel last turn prior, so they upgraded that into a Scheme and now buys back the Chapel because there's still quite a bit of junk left to give out. And yeah, you need the Chapel to get rid of those things. Procession alone can't get rid of all those. Well, it can, but Chapel will do it faster. So here I avoid triggering the reshuffle and playing Chapel. Again, I avoid playing Chapel there in favor of the Marauder, just to try to land some junk into my opponent's deck. And we're back here. I am going to use this Procession on this Scheme, probably picking up, actually picking up another Procession. At this point, I'm not really sure if I have enough targets on my deck for the second Procession, but I'm gonna get it anyway because Procession is cool, and this is all just a complete learning experience for me. Like I said, I have no gauge on how to use Procession. This is what, 3 Processions in my deck so far. So here I process the Marauder, and I will pick up a City with it here. City over the Rogue at this point. There's nothing really to regain from the trash at this point. I'd much rather have the City. And 3 is going to pick up another Scheme. I have the option to stick things back with the Procession. I had no idea that would happen if I process Scheme, but it works that way. So I think I end up sticking back a Procession and an Oasis. Well, looking at it now, that seems to be the smart thing to do. Yeah, Procession is okay because you could process the Procession, pick up a City, worst case scenario, right? But I choose the safer thing, picking up the Oasis. So here the Oasis hurts me. If this was a Scheme, I could get more Chapel action going on here, but as is, I haven't been Chapeling quite at all since that first shuffle, whereas my opponent has cut down quite a bit of cards from their deck. So I think I have more junk than him, not just from the ruins, but from the starting cards. And you'll see how that comes into play near the end of the game here. So here I give up the chapel, and I'm going to give up this ruined library, I believe. Or no, I give up the copper because I'm going to play the ruined library to try to get to 8, because I'm close right now. I have 6. Getting rid of the ruined library would get me to 7. I'm going to try for 8, don't quite get to 8, get to 7. Spending the spoils is better just to get it out of the deck, I believe. There's some consideration to keep it to get to pathfinding, but it's not worth it. And I go for goons now. I go for goons. Yeah. So one criticism is probably that I'm not thin enough yet to go for goons. And I think that's true. I think if I could get like super thin, mega ultra thin, then I could just have so much more flexibility with the procession. My opponent again cuts here with Chapel after using procession on Scheme to pick up. What does he upgrade his Scheme into? Gains a procession off of it, right? So here I use procession on procession, and then City. Hopefully I would draw into something that is not Chapel, because I don't want to get rid of my Chapel just to buy it back. I could have done that here, but there's no point to doing that. So I just keep the Chapel around the deck. Second piece of trash in for me here. So that's what, 6 starting cards go on, which is not bad. But there's ruins in my deck. There's still 2 more coppers. This isn't the greatest hand in the world. And I'm getting rid of processions from my deck by playing these processions on other processions. So yeah, able to trash a couple of ruins here with the processions, which is cool. The rune library goes away, as does the survivors. This hand isn't particularly attractive. That hand isn't also particularly attractive. I mean, sure, there's the goons, but I could discard that and be happy with it, and I end up discarding it. It'll get me to the end of the shuffle. Is not so big a deal that I play the goons, I don't think. So yeah, another city for me here, and 3. Look, the scheme pile is thin. The scheme pile is 3 more schemes. Processed Marauders could just drain that ruins pile, which is also very thin. And the procession pile is thin. So you know what's going on? A 3 pile is going on already, and we have no points each right now. So I'm starting to look at points at this point in the game, because like I said, I have no gauge. Like, I don't know how much I could do with processions. I don't know how much my opponent can do with the procession in terms of lowering piles. So a couple schemes for my opponent and getting rid of the ruins, and that's the end of their turn. So not too exciting of a turn here. For my opponent here, I have this this unhappy collision. I really don't like to see this. I could play Chapel here and get rid of 3 bad cards instead of the goons. Again, looking back at it, I feel like that's the better play. The alternative is to play goons and buy a farming village, for example, or a procession. So what I do end up doing is playing the goons, and I think I pick up a farming village. Maybe picking up a procession was better, but at this point I'm scared of piles. So I wanted to just not touch the processions or the schemes, and I pick up a farming village. It gives me a point, which is something, I guess. So I have the temporary lead at this point. So my opponent has to, at least overcome that and empty the piles. But we see here a procession just come out for my opponent following a scheme. So they have a few schemes which they haven't processed. And they have a few processions, right? They have a goons as well. My opponent processed the marauder there, so now the ruins pile is 2 less, not just 1 less, and they pick up city, I believe. And that's another thing with running piles, right? City becomes a lot better with piles empty. That Oasis triggered a shuffle that I didn't want to trigger, but I wasn't keeping track of what was going on. This is what I was keeping track of. Oh, I need to get to 8, I need to get to 8, and I wasn't even watching the shuffle. Only after I triggered it, I realized, oh, bunch of my processions are outside of the shuffle. Luckily, I processed a scheme so I could put back a city and a goons here at least. I get the 8 and I stick the pathfinding down on the cities. Now, I have no idea if that is right or not. It seemed worth it at the time. Because my plan was to have like a few cities, a few goons, and just, maybe process goons and rogue gain them back or something, and just buy lots of things with the goons for points. And just use procession liberally because there's rogue trash things, you just regain them back. Process the rogue, gain goons, gain stuff from the trash, process your full cost, get back the rogue. It's just a lot of interaction with the trash in this game, and you don't have to fear losing anything because rogue exists. So this city is only going to draw me 2 cards because there's no pile actually finished yet. So it doesn't draw me 3 cards like the Mega Ultra City. Going to opt to get rid of some ruins here via the procession route. I discard the first time their farming village is decent. I don't know why I kept that. Could I probably pitch that? Should have picked up the goons instead? Maybe. I don't know. Anyways, and then I could process the abandoned mine, and I do process the abandoned mine because I still have an action left. And procession on procession means I get another 5 cost, which I go for a city at this point. That pile isn't as thin as the others, so I feel, and it's like very valuable to me to pick up the city. And now I go for the rogue here, I believe. I could have gone for another city, but maybe that was better, honestly. Maybe the other city was better, but I pick up the rogue at this point. And one other thing I didn't pay attention to at this point in the game was that on a spare buy from the goons, I could have picked up the last ruins to make my cities draw a heap of cards. Like Procession City here would draw 6 cards. That's a lot of cards, and especially I need that because my deck is nowhere near as thin as my opponent's deck. So all through this middle part of the game here, my opponent hasn't been really doing too much. They're like process Marauder, one turn, scheme, and then I see goons, scheme, goons, and that's the end of their turn, right? So I felt like I was in a decent-ish position here. At this point, I have a slight points lead. I have the token on the cities. So, and I have the rogue now. I can regain my cities. Felt like I was in a very, very good position. And here, being able to play triple goons, that's immense. That's immense. So I'm going to pick up another city at this point alongside a farming village. Still unsure of the piles, but which is why I go for the farming village over any other focus. Like, well, there's no other focus. There's procession, sorry. And I missed that play here, I believe. So I could have bought that final ruins for 3 points, right? That's clearly worth it. There's a city in my hand here. So, and I would have activated my city, and maybe if I processed something, I could empty another pile, get buys of the city, in addition to the goons, and maybe rush out provinces, because I would have money, and not provinces, estates as well. So, I think I missed a bit of a play there. I'm not sure how much of a difference it would have made. I can't say, of course, but definitely I think I should have gone for that ruins there. Extra 3 points, and I get massive draw of the city. So I'm going to play this city now, and again, only 2 cards, right? Had I gotten 3 cards, well, who knows? Who knows? This hand is not great at all. A bunch of coppers and that ruins. Just going to play the rogue now and regain a city, I believe. Procession is also a consideration, but really the city is way more valuable to me. Just going to cut away 2 things here, so leaving 5, and now I'm going to make the play of the ruins, right? Now I'm going to make the play of the ruins. Now I'm going to buy the city and the ruins because I feel like I have enough of a points lead that I could do this. As you will see on the next turn, I sorely underestimate my opponent, and they're able to have this magnificent turn here. Because I empty the ruins, processing a city for them gives them a bunch more cards than it would ordinarily do. And it allows them to do this massive procession thing where they are able to process cities, gain goons, and then use procession on procession to gain the rest of the cities. That was a procession on a rogue there, so more goons. All these cities are gone, and all these cities have plus buys, and he has a few of them. Getting rid of the survivors, scheme, city, and the goons. The goons come out, and he has a bunch of money, a bunch of buys. And this is crushing at the end here, right? I don't know if me buying the ruins actually helped that. It definitely helped it, but I don't know if he had it regardless of me buying the ruins or not. So yeah, my inexperience with procession comes through here. Quite a good ending from my opponent. So thanks for watching and see you in the next one.